Hi, my name is Jarno and I'm your event tutor. My YouTube channel is all about teaching you how to plan and organize an event or festival. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel or leave a comment below. But first, enjoy this video.
So I'm here with Stefanie Jones from the Drugs Policy Alliance, and well, please introduce yourself.
So again, I'm Stefanie Jones. I work for the Drug Policy Alliance, which is a nonprofit advocacy organization that works to change drug laws so that they reflect health values rather than criminal justice and a criminal justice approach. We work on the full range of issues from medical marijuana laws, legalizing marijuana, to harm reduction when it comes to opiate drugs in terms of preventing overdose. And I run a new program within DPA that focuses specifically on drug use within nightlife and festival settings.
What is the big issue of drug use within either events, festivals, nightlife? Why is it such a key issue at the moment?
So from a drug policy perspective, the issue about drug use in this setting is that it's a recreational setting. So we're mostly not talking about addictive or problematic or heavy problematic use, which is kind of a new sort of unaddressed field, at least in the U.S. context. And it's definitely getting a lot of attention in the media because at festivals getting bigger and bigger, more people attending leads to more problems when there's drug use at events and sometimes deaths. So it's something that is a need for us to explore and to start talking about and finding solutions.
When you talk about responsibilities, for example, of the event producer or the event manager, event organizer, when, for example, something goes horribly wrong with, for example, an overdose of one of the attendees, where does the responsibility stop or begins for an event producer?
Well, you hope that as an event producer, actually, that you spend a lot of your time in preparation, sort of, planning for the worst case scenario. So when that comes to drug use, the first step is just acknowledging that even though laws may prohibit the use of certain drugs and that you will be following certain standards with security and police to try and keep them out, the first thing is admitting that some of them are inevitably going to get in and they're going to be used. So once you have your, security policing in place, which is necessary, you have to then plan for the health complications that can arise. So a lot of it really is an event organizer's responsibility to actually prepare for in advance. So they need to think about certain things. Do I have enough fans or cooling in the area? Am I making sure the capacity, things are not too crowded? Those are just a couple of things to think about in advance. The really responsible thing to do for an event organizer is also to have a group like Dance Safe, which is a mostly volunteer-run organization of peers educating other peers about the various drugs that might be there. And the reason that this helps is that people are often terribly uninformed about what substances are, what is a safer way to use them if they're going to choose to use them. And ultimately, although we may not want people to use drugs, some of them going to choose to do that, and we need to make sure that they're best prepared so that they can keep themselves safe.
As an event organization, do you, once you have acknowledged that drugs will be used at your event, yes, you can work with an organization like Dance Safe, but do you have to, how does the communication work with, for example, authorities? Do they immediately put you in, a bad spot, or how is communication with police, with medical services? How is it with the permit provider? How does that impact your event organization?
That's another key aspect of preparation, actually, is, again, once you sort of have acknowledged that you're going to do everything necessary to plan for this, is to make, authorities aware that this is your intention. To go to the city officials, the permitting agencies, and say, this is how we plan to do things. We're going to have education. We're going to have, a mental health space, a chill out space. We're going to, give free water away, whatever it is that you're including in your plan. Make sure the city officials know. Make sure that law enforcement knows, and make sure that your insurance knows. And it's always best to give people, your full idea of what your plan is, because then everybody's on the same page, and they understand that even if a problem arises, that you've been a responsible sort of organizer who's been taking these things into account from the beginning, and that will really go a long way in the event that something bad or tragic does happen.
What are the main types of drugs that are being used at events and festivals? What's the most common one?
Yeah. So I really have to stress that every drug that's out there is probably used at some festival somewhere. It's hard to know unless you do really regionalized studies or really festival specific studies. I mean, the common, I'll put it out there even though it's kind of encouraging a stereotype, but with electronic music, there's always a history of using the drug MDMA, which is also called ecstasy or Molly. But right now there's just such a complicated field because there's any number of new synthetic drugs that people may not even know the names of before they're putting them in their bodies. So it's hard to say. And then you have also classics like, marijuana, which is smoked at so many different events. So it's really, you have to think about your crowd specifically and what the ages are, what their use patterns might be, really focus specifically on who your event is targeted towards to be able to answer that question.
Is this something that really goes into your safety plan, or where in your event plan do you talk about potential drug use at your event or festival?
So, as I mentioned, this is a really important part of your preparation for an event, and there's really 5 areas where you should be thinking about what is going to be my plan around drug use. So the first one is obviously security and enforcement. You have to, try and prevent these substances to get in because of the laws that exist. At the same time, you really don't want to be arresting people. You don't want to be kicking people out of your event because it's just a bad feeling, and an arrest can have a terrible impact on somebody's life. So you should think about what kind of policies you can enact where, as a result of a search, perhaps you just confiscate the substance. The person is still allowed to go into the event. It's obviously up to your security team, but to take down that negative impact from drug use and possession is a really important aspect to think about, and see if you can have law enforcement and your security team go along with that. So that's one area. The second area is with your medical team. You should always have, if not a team, like a doctor. You have to judge based on how large your event is, what you're going to need. But you need to make sure they're well informed, not just about the classic drugs, but also whatever is new on the scene. Make sure they're well informed about the effects and what the possible interactions are, that sort of thing. And the second and third thing, or the third and fourth things kind of go together. They're, again, educating people. So using a service like DanceSafe to inform the festival goers about what are drug effects, what are safer use practices, having somebody on hand to answer questions, having an informational space. And then the other flip side of that is if somebody has taken something, they're not having a medical emergency, but they just kind of need to chill out. They need to have a timeout. To have a space where they can do that, maybe have trained counselors on hand or peers that have been given some training about how to speak to people who are having difficult experiences. That's a really great thing to do. And then finally is just thinking about safe settings. So, you have to, of course, make sure your capacity is right, make sure you're having heating and cooling at the right levels, but just to be thoughtful that, going beyond what might be in the the laid out permits and thinking about how drug use might interact with those things to make them more or less risky, and sort of thinking about that. So those are the 5 things: enforcement, medical, mental health, education, and safe settings.
And that all comes down to planning.
All comes down to planning.
Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. My name is Jarno, your event tutor. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and do check out my other videos. See you next time.